everybody. Welcome to the Replayer Podcast. I'm Pagan, and joining me as always is my co-host, Dan. Hello, Dan.
What's up, visual listeners?
What's up, visual listeners, and also audio listeners? We don't want you to
No, but they're
feel
all
like we've forgotten
listeners.
about you.
They all
We love you.
listen.
All, yeah, that's true. Welcome, Andrew. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hey.
Hello.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. It's been a while. It's been a hot minute.
Yeah, it has. Oh my gosh.
Well, thank you so much for coming back on the show. We have a great topic to get into today, so we might as well just dive right in. We're going to be talking about the discourse that is currently on Twitter. It's definitely on my timeline 24/7. I see it all the time, and it's specifically around Elden Ring and game difficulty options. There isn't a game difficulty option in Elden Ring. You're just fucking thrown into the fire in that game. But should there be an easier mode, or should there be a drop down difficulty level?
No, absolutely.
All right, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a wonderful day. Take care. Goodbye.
You're wrong. I'm right. Get out of here.
Now let's throw it over to Dan. Dan, this is your topic that you wanted to bring forward today, because I have not actually played Elden Ring. So what do you think?
Absolutely. And just like you, my timeline is riddled with notifications and messages and complaints or whatever the discourse that's going on the internet around Elden Ring and other games of that sort and the difficulty around them. And I know Andrew has got some thoughts on this too, so I'm happy to have him here to talk about this as well. So basically, if you don't know, I don't know how you wouldn't at this point, there's a bunch of people bitching that Elden Ring is hard. Surprised? I don't know. If you've never heard of or known or heard anything about a FromSoft game, they typically are pretty challenging. And a lot of people jumped into Elden Ring because it's getting such high praise and high rewards and the high, reviews. So people are jumping on it. And then they're like, this game is hard. Fucking, what the hell? And complaining that you can't change the difficulty. So
out of how many games that they've released, they just now picked up on this?
Yeah. And I wanted to talk about it at least for a minute, because I think there's something to be said here when it comes to whether or not a game should have a difficulty option, because a lot of games do, but not every game does. And a game like Elden Ring, that's part of the big discourse that I see on the internet, is a lot of people are like, why doesn't this have an easy mode? I want to play this game, but I can't because it's too hard for me. And all I have to say to that is that's the point. It's not to make it so that you can't play the game. It's meant to be a hard game. Andrew's already right there.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you. Because it's honestly, to putting a difficulty slider kind of defeats the purpose of what the game is.
Yeah.
In all honesty, because why put in a difficulty slider now when you never did with the other past games like Demon Souls, Bloodborne, and all the Dark Souls series? There's no point.
Now, I can
it also defeats the art form of it.
Yeah,
it defeats the art form of that game.
I can see.
You don't see Picasso changing up.
Yeah,
his
we're gonna throw hands.
I'm throwing hands.
We're gonna throw hands because cool. I would give you a massive reason, and that's accessibility.
I get that. I get that argument and I get that approach, but here's my counter to that.
Okay.
There's a certain difference between accessibility, okay, I want as many people to be able to play this game as possible, but sometimes it's just not possible.
Feasible.
It's just not. And again, that's where it comes down to people being like, this game should have an easy mode for me because I want to be able to experience this game. But that's the experience. The experience is the challenge. Mm-hmm. If you give a game like Elden Ring an easy mode, it destroys that experience. It completely nullifies the point of these games and what they're trying to accomplish. And conversely, sorry, go ahead.
Mm-hmm. No, go ahead.
I wanted to point out, what about baby games? What about games that are overly easy but don't have a hard option? There are games built for people to be easy, and there's games that I've tried playing and I'm like, this game's too easy. This is boring. I don't like it. It's the exact opposite kind of thing.
But it's not stopping you completing the game because it is easy. You're just bored of playing it. Whereas I think as an accessibility issue,
from playing Elden Ring either, though.
No, it can't. It doesn't stop me from playing Elden Ring. It
When you
would
say
probably stop
accessibility,
a lot of
what
other
is your
people.
approach and argument on that side of accessibility?
For anybody, for like players with disabilities, for players with like
I
who
can
suffer from
argue
potentially like.
players with disabilities
Okay, go ahead.
because there are
Yeah.
people who are playing these games with Guitar Hero guitars and Donkey Kong bongos, and they beat them.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that the controller is not difficult or anything like that. I'm just
Right.
saying like as a wider scope as well, or people who suffer from like anxiety disorders or anything like that might be triggered by something that is super challenging.
Then all I have
I'm
to
not
say is that game's
saying
Well,
not for you. Then
That's
Well, yeah,
I
but
mean,
my-
because
yeah, but
then
my point-
everybody be doing it. I mean, in all
all right, but
honesty.
my point is why does it lessen the point or the value of this game to have an accessibility option that is just an easier difficulty? That's just a choice. Like you just opt in. So your automatic level, like when you load up Elden Ring, will be this level, right? It'll be like this difficulty
Mhm.
level. But why is it such a bad thing to put in on the side that there's like, if you go into the game menu, you can choose a lower option? Why is that an issue for you?
I have kind of like that answer for that. It's
Yeah,
ahead,
go for
Andrew.
it.
the guy, I can't pronounce his name, Miyazaki or the
Miyazaki.
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 His approach to that was more the case of like, look, this is going to be a very challenging game. The whole point of this game is for you to overcome these challenging bosses, these challenges that are going to come at you.
Like life.
You're not going to succeed right off the bat.
Yeah.
You are going to get your ass kicked. And the whole point of this is to overcome these challenges and how you do that, and to how to think outside the box with stuff like that. So
regardless of your abilities.
regardless of your abilities. So it's a sense of like
an
that.
interesting
And
it's an
his art
interesting
form.
point because I think like what's difficult for you and Dan is impossible for me. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Or what's difficult for you and Dan might be really impossible for somebody else who may have like some kind of disability that would be preventing them for playing these kind of games. And what I'm just saying is like why would it devalue that game or why would it take away from the point or your experience as gamers when it's just them who want to play this game, who want to be involved in the conversation, but they can't be
Well,
because
let me ask you the same
they can't play the
thing
game.
as far as like, what if somebody wanted to play one of your favorite games of all time? Let's say Uncharted or Last of Us or any number of
Mhm.
games that is pretty feasibly beatable for a normal person with a normal skill level. But what if somebody can't play that game because of a disability? What is their option?
Oh,
What do they do in that situation if they can't play the game because of a physical limitation? What would you
yeah,
tell them?
1,000%. No, I'm not disagreeing with you here. I think that more
I'm asking you,
game
what would you tell
studios.
them that? What would you tell that person in that
Well,
situation?
unfortunately, those games were not made with accessibility in mind. Elden Ring came out in 2022.
Regardless of whether or not the developer put accessibility into the game, though.
I'm just saying that I think that
They
like
were
it
just-
should have been. So the thing
But
is like
Last
they
of Us
can
2
play
is
those
one of the
games.
most highly rated accessibility games on the market right now.
Yes.
So what about that? You're missing what I'm trying to get at, Peyton. I'm trying
Sorry.
to
Yeah,
ask
I
you-
clearly am. I'm
I'm trying
sorry.
to ask you, what do you tell a person who can't play a game, regardless of what that game is, because of a disability? Regardless, what do you tell that person to do?
Well, I don't know.
You probably tell
Because
them
I
to
don't
watch
know
a
what
video.
they're-
You tell them to watch somebody else playing the game if they want to experience the game.
Well, yeah, I guess so. You can watch it on YouTube or on
Right.
things like that. But I'm just saying, like they don't have the same experience in terms of playing the game.
Absolutely. No, you're
And
never going to get
I
the same
think that
experience.
like
yeah.
let's take disability out of the equation then for a second, right? Because I mean, in a realistic world, like it would be great if all these companies
Yeah.
were including those options for more accessibility, right? That's point period.
Mhm.
But let's take it away out of the side. Let's just take like inexperienced gamers. Then you're just being like, well, you can't play this.
No, not at all. I would tell
No.
an inexperienced gamer to learn how to play this.
Mhm.
Become experienced. That's the point of the games. It's to
I see.
get experience. It's to get good. It's to develop that skill. And I don't mean get good in the get good kind of way that meant.
No,
Yeah,
yeah.
I-
Not
No,
in a
And I've
negative
had the
sense.
same conversation with Brandy because Brandy is one of these people. She's one of these folks who is really interested in Elden Ring and what it has on offer. But
So is Rachel.
her skill level is really low. And I've had to sit there and coach her and like, okay, you need to think, learn, experience,
Okay.
spend time in this world, learn how to play because it's different. You can't just jump
Mhm.
in and mash an X button or an A button. You can't just let the game, carry you through different things like you might be used to in other games. The point of these
Sure.
games is to learn how to overcome these challenges. And Sean said it on our episode last week. It seems impossible
Mhm.
at first, but then it's
Mhm.
not. Once you beat it, it's like, oh, this isn't impossible. And it was the same thing with Metroid Dread, did the same thing. Like bosses seemed impossible until you beat them. And you're like, oh, that's all I had to do. Oh, it's really easy. I'm
And
now 90 hours into this game and I'm fighting monsters that at the beginning of the game I thought were impossible to beat. And now I kill them almost immediately because I've learned how to deal with them and I've gotten stronger and I've gotten better. I, as a player, have gotten better as well as my character in the game.
Mhm.
the thing I want to add to that,
Please.
um, the whole there's other ways too, like how to overcome those problems with what was it? Dan, remember I was on what was his name? Migrate, whatever his name.
Oh, the first boss. Yeah.
The
Margaret.
first, he's technically,
Marguerite or
yeah,
something.
he's technically kind of like the
I would
is he the
say
first boss? Or he's more of like the main. He's not even a main boss yet.
he's
I
the
haven't gotten
first,
to the
like,
first main. He's the
named
first
boss.
named
He's not a
gate boss.
shard
Yeah,
bearer,
to get to
though.
the he's exactly. So, but the point was, like, I could not beat him for the life of me. But then I started seeing
He's
his
supposed to be
movesets.
the, like, the sounding pole, essentially, to make you realize, like, oh, okay, this game is hard.
Well,
Like,
yeah, and I've gone after like other mini bosses
yeah.
that were less tough, but the point was like when I was going up against him, it was kind of like, okay, I do not know any of this guy's movesets. So I died at least 30, 40, maybe more times before I finally was able to understand, okay, I see what he's about to do and I'm able to like dodge it. Or, or I would, if I kept getting my ass kicked, I would just go out, farm enemies and just get my stats up to where I can have better stats,
Mhm.
essentially, where it's easier for me to get him. So essentially it's more of the case of like you have to have patience
Oh,
in
yeah.
how you play the game. It's
And
it's and it's not to be discouraging to other players.
yeah.
It's more of to just get you to keep going and not to let something like that get the better of you.
Yeah. And then, of
Regardless
course,
of what
Mhm.
mm,
limitations you have.
yeah.
It's
Right.
not that's never the case. It's the case of like keep trying, don't give up, and keep
Yeah.
going.
And there's
I think
always
like the point.
multiplayer.
Sorry.
There's co-op.
Yeah.
I got Brandy
And
through the first 2 bosses in the game, I think, in a few hours when it took me days by myself.
I think the important thing that like you guys are both trying to say there is that like it's not about accessibility because like you should be able to like all games should be including options for you to play the game no matter what limitations you have.
Sure.
But having every game like on a harder mode or anything like that isn't like what you're saying is like it's separate. It's just
Mm.
a difficult level that everybody needs to go through and achieve.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, I don't think that's like I don't agree. I think that can be a bit ableist in a way. I'm not calling you ableist. I'm just saying that
I
like that
gotcha.
idea is that like we're all experiencing the same thing because we're definitely all not.
Mhm.
And there are definitely gamers who would like have that struggle.
Yeah.
But like you say, Dan, there's ways to experience the game outside of playing it yourself
Sure.
if that's the way that they want to
Right.
do it.
Yeah. Every FromSoft game, not every FromSoft, but all the Soulsborns, those games are 98% combat and 2% story.
Yes.
So what you're
Yes.
experiencing is the combat. It's
Mhm.
that challenge.
Yeah.
It's the gameplay. Like, I was going to make the contrast that I have 90 hours in Elden Ring. I have 8 hours in Horizon Forbidden West so far. And I got to say, it's like that's how much gameplay. It's the gameplay. It's got me locked. The
Mhm.
gameplay has got me. I'm stuck in this world. There's very little story. There's very little context of what's going on. But I love the challenge. I love the exploration. I love the learning how to beat a boss that I'm stuck on.
Kind of go with
Piggyback
kind
the
of like
piggyback.
piggyback, but I wanted to also talk about like what you were saying about accessibility too. You can actually like one thing noticed that for the mechanics, and they've always kept it in every like Demon Souls and all that stuff, is that you can get a friend to play with you to help you out with some stuff. You can even when I was going against that one boss, I summoned the one sorcerer that's at the main gate. They give you a bot where
Yeah.
you can actually go against him. And actually, after how many, like 80 tries, because it was with my friends, we couldn't do it. And I just summoned the sorcerer, and I just did it in 2 more tries, and that was it. And I managed to beat him. Because
Nice.
I got the sorcerer to
Yeah.
help me out.
And sometimes that's all it comes down
So,
to is a simple, like, oh, I just figured
A
this out,
simple
or
thing.
I figured a trick out, or I learned how to do this. And even with that
Getting a
first,
shield that helps block his attacks
yeah, and
without
there's
getting
that
stumbled.
there's an item you can get that helps
Yeah.
immobilize him, and you can get some free hits on him early on. So there's all these little things. There's all these little
Mhm.
ways to learn.
Yeah, I think we were having that issue with my friends and I on Elden Ring, where they have the boss where it's like he's a little tougher because you have 2 other people with you. I think because we noticed the damage output that
The
we
people
did
guessing
on.
in get severely disabled too.
Yes,
Like
that's
they
true.
lose
That
so
is
much
true. They
health.
do. They lose health. They exactly. So they kind of balance, like a balance issue.
Yeah.
But I want to extend a question to Pagan on the accessibility. Are we thinking of like physical accessibility wise to play Elden Ring, or are we talking
I'm
about,
thinking
or is
that
it everything in between?
so yeah, I would pretty much encompass everything in between. Like I think that it should be a game for everyone,
Mm-hmm.
and clearly that's not the same stance that everyone has.
I don't think every game
But
should be for everyone though. That's my stance.
well, that's fine. I mean, the thing is, like,
Yeah.
I think, for example, what they've done with Destiny is that they're putting you in on X mode, which is something that I think that Elden Ring could have done. They could have just put you straight in the game. They don't give you the option at the beginning. They just put you straight in the game with this difficulty level. And if you find it too challenging, if you find it too difficult, that you want to play this game, that you're hyped for this game, that you spent so much money on this game, and you can't play it, it's too difficult for you because not everybody's difficulty experience is the same. Because what, like I said, is difficult for Dan and Andrew might feel impossible to somebody else, like me, for example. I'm just using me as an example. I haven't played this game. What I'm saying is, why does it hinder anybody else's experience if I go into the options menu and drop my level lower? Because primarily Elden Ring is a solo game. It is pretty much designed to be that way, other than the fact that you can invite your guests in to help you pass certain modes. But like you've just said, they come in with like a disadvantage, like they're not as strong as that they should be. And then the bosses are harder because you have more friends in. So
Mhm.
again, my real issue is, why shouldn't there be an easy mode regardless of like disability? Let's just put that
Okay.
to aside, because I think that's a very contentious topic on the internet now as well. They're like, well, it's not the same.
I think I have
Okay, so
I have
let's
a
not.
answer for you, Pagan.
Okay, yeah, go
From
ahead.
where you're coming from, you're asking, okay, what's wrong with me being able to play this game on easy mode because I want to play this
Yes.
game? So
Yeah.
remember what we were just talking about, that boss and all the, like, Andrew died all these times. He had all these things he had to figure out. He had to do all this stuff.
Yeah.
He went through all of this challenge and all of this stuff. And you walk in there and you go, bink, bye, boss. Do. Boss is dead. You
It kind
keep
of defeats the
moving.
purpose.
Well, besides that,
Not defeats the purpose.
you're
Sorry,
going to
not
walk
like
away from that
but-
boss not remembering his name, not remembering that fight, not thinking about that fight, because you're just like, whatever, bang, you're dead. Move on. Whereas
Well, I'm not
Andrew
saying
and I
a
are
baby
it's
mode.
burned into our brain. I'm not saying a baby
Right.
mode either, but I'm making the stark contrast between it takes Andrew 80 deaths to beat this boss, and
Yeah.
it takes you, say, 5. Let's say you beat him in
Yeah.
4 or 5 tries because it's on normal, regular, easy difficulty, whatever it is.
Okay.
And you're just like, whatever, bink, bye, boss. It's a whole.
Yeah,
Yours
why
is-
does that
you're-
hinder
I-
your
I also-
experience?
That no, but you're experiencing the game in a way that it's not intended to be. That's what I'm making the point of. You're not having that
Also-
lasting experience with the boss or the enemy or that monster that the
Yeah.
director intended.
Right. Exactly.
thing-
and
yeah.
I'm saying that, like, I'm not talking about a baby mode. I'm not talking about, say, 5 deaths and I'm thingy. I'm saying, like, what takes Andrew 80 deaths maybe could take a player on a slightly easier mode 60 or 50.
Mhm.
Like, I'm not saying a baby mode, because, like, let's put
Well,
let's
then
put
that
it to the
comes down
test,
to
right?
skill
There's got to
level,
be
because it took me 20 tries to beat that boss, where it might have taken Andrew 80 tries. That it might
okay.
have
Well,
taken
I wasn't
and-
talking about that. Like,
it might have taken
specifically. I'm talking about,
Patrick-
like, the average.
You're
I'm
talking about,
saying
like, the average
I'm probably
Joe,
closer
right?
to the average.
No. Okay, so hold on a second. So what I mean is, like, say that they run tests on Elden Ring, right? And a
Mhm.
percentage of people usually take between 50 and 60 deaths to beat this boss.
Hmm.
Just drop a difficulty level that's slightly easier so that it's between 40 and 50. Do you know what I mean? So like run like so that it's not
I was just saying, not everyone's going to have the
exactly.
patience for that anyways.
All right. But I'm just thinking like there's a lot of people that have obviously bought this game. They're hyped up for it. Maybe they've watched playthroughs of like Bloodborne or Demon
Mhm.
Souls or whatever. Maybe they're
But
just
all those
not
games are
in
the
the same
same.
privileged
They're
position
all the
that we
same.
are all in to have owned those games or to play them, right? Maybe they're just not as privileged
That's a
and they
privileged
don't
position?
have no, they just might not have the money for it. They might not have had the consoles. They might not have had like all the stuff for
Okay.
it, right? Let's just say. And they like were saving up money for this one because that's what they wanted to play. Obviously, not the best choice because they must
Well,
know by
that's-
now.
I will tell you,
Super difficult game.
from
But what I'm
I
software
just
think
games
saying
have
is like
burned people in the past, and it's a lesson.
Yeah.
It's basically a hard lesson to learn that okay, this
Right.
game's not for me. Return it to the store. I know
Before we-
plenty
Can
of
you
friends who
return it
bought.
though?
It depends most
Yeah,
of the time.
depends if you buy the hard disk. Yeah, you can definitely return it.
I mean, like I had a friend who bought
What?
Sekiro too when that
I
came
haven't
out. He's like, this
I-
game's too
hard
hard
hard.
discs in a
GameStop.
while.
But
These are my
I
last
kind of
hard discs.
I kind of want to, before we kind of continue on,
Yeah, go
with
for it,
the
sorry.
accessibility. The one thing I've noticed in the past games that I've played, when something gets too hard, and I'm like, I'm done. I'm just going to switch it over to easy mode and then be on my way. It kind of defeats the purpose, like I said, to what the From Software is trying to show you, because it's just like, oh, I'm having a hard time with this guy. Doop, easy mode, or I'm
Right.
going to change
There
the
is-
difficulty.
there is
It
a-
kind of defeats. It's kind of like saying like, okay, well, it's like trying to change what the art form is.
Mm.
It's like trying to tell Pablo Picasso to change his brushstrokes. Makes no sense.
Right.
You
Because
know,
this like Miyazaki like intended this game to be
he
ultra
intended
difficult.
it that
Even
way.
though he apologized to everyone struggling through the game.
It
Sure.
It wasn't a real apology.
It
He's like,
wasn't really.
I feel sorry for you.
but
I
it's
wanna-
more the case of like, sorry, but this
Yeah.
is the way this was my
Saute.
vision of it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
Sorry,
don't-
not sorry,
sorry.
but maybe you
Yes.
should have paid attention to demons.
No, I mean it's great. It's good discourse.
It's great. No, it's fantastic. We're
love
getting
it.
more heated than I expected, which is good. I want to shout out one game who does this. It does Soulsborne well, and it has difficulty options, and that's Jedi Fallen Order. That game
Oh.
is
Yeah,
100%
yes.
a Soulsborne, and it has varying difficulties all the way down to story mode, but it's still challenging. It's easier. You can experience the game on a more legitimate basis, and it doesn't fault you for that. You can actually beat Jedi Fallen Order on story mode and get every achievement / trophy in that game.
Whereas Wolfenstein would make fun of you for the difficulty change.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's
Right,
been
exactly,
doing that
yeah.
since Doom and Wolfenstein back in
It's
the
pretty
day.
funny.
Literally calling
Okay,
it baby
well,
mode. Yeah.
See, I think that I think it would have been beneficial to have like an optional easier mode, not like an easy mode, not a story mode or whatever for Elden Ring, but in a way that's like, again, when you load up the game, it's going into like, as Miyazaki intended, that it's just this difficulty. And if it's too hard, you have to go into the option settings and find that easier mode and drop it down. And then just pop up a fucking disclaimer, bro. Just be like, hey, this isn't how we intended the game. If you would like to drop down to a difficulty, this is your choice. However, you won't be experiencing the full game experience as designed by said director. Click to
Mhm.
continue, and you click to continue.
But
because that should
Miyazaki
be on
says,
me.
Fuck that.
Yeah, like that. They
Well-
could do the difficulty walk of shame, but it's just like like it's not really right because it's not like, hey, turn to bitch baby mode, and you're like, no, great. Like
I would love
Wolfenstein
that to be the
does.
disclaimer, like, welcome to
Right.
bitch baby mode.
Welcome to bitch
Also-
baby mode. You little
that kinda-
bitch. No. But what I just mean is like, at least it's giving the gamer the choice, because I understand what you're saying, right? You're saying that it's defeating the purpose. It's not how it's designed or anything like that. But maybe it's just better for some people to play it on that difficulty level. It doesn't hinder yours or Dan's
Mhm.
experience, for example, Andrew. Like, I just don't think that it
Well, it
shouldn't
just did
matter
when I
how
just
the.
said that.
Well, it shouldn't
But
hinder.
by saying like, oh, I'm going to flip it over to easy mode because I'm having a hard time with the guys on this one boss. Technically,
No,
speaking, it would
I
hinder
mean, I
me,
think that
'cause
like maybe
if
they
that's what
should
you
have an
meant.
option that doesn't change it, or they could change it back. I don't know. I'm just playing devil's advocate. I haven't
Right.
played
No,
this
that's
game. I
fine.
have
That
no
goes
idea. I've
against,
actually never touched a
think-
From Software game, so I don't
Well,
know.
think-
Andrew made the
Think of it
argument about
this-
the art
think-
form too, and you're
Well-
defiling the art form in that sense.
Oh, I see. I don't.
Well, it's more
I
the-
disagree
it's not
with that.
really-
Okay.
Well, the thing was, I'm trying to make mention too is also too when it becomes like difficulty wise. Like I said, there are options to help make it easier for you.
Mm-hmm.
Like again, when you Dan knows Tree Sentinel, right?
Oh,
Right there, right at the beginning, there's a guy that's like a mini boss, instantly obliterates you.
yeah.
But
There's no
you
warning.
you go in a, but there's no warning. But you can just go around him
Yep.
and farm souls, runes, but I call it
Oh,
souls.
okay.
But you can go kill enemies,
Quite
level your
literally,
guy
everything
up
is
to make
avoidable
it.
in the game.
It's avoidable. It's open world. It gives you the option to where you can be like, I'm gonna go to this area over here, and I'm just gonna
You can
start trying to
explore
get
the
stronger
entire world without
because
having to fight any of the bosses.
right,
That's
you
pretty
can't.
cool. I didn't know about that.
But sorry, I'm getting a little emotional here. No, I'm just kidding.
It's okay.
No. The one thing I've noticed though when I was playing Elden Ring was because I did have that like what you were saying, Pagan, in mind of like difficulty wise and like with that. What I've noticed is that they kind of have a difficulty slider in a way, but it's more of a natural slider. If you think about it, it's more like the more souls that you reap, the more runes you get, the more stats that you increase yourself, the more easier it's going to get.
Yeah.
The only downside is patience. The only downside of all of that is just you have to have the patience to do that because
Absolutely.
he's made the game to where you're not going to beat this game in like 5 hours like a Call of Duty game. It's one of those things where you have to figure things out how you're going to do this. Like I've had guys that are telling, I have friends that are telling me, goes like, yeah, I was like farming for about 3 hours and I was able to overcome a lot. Cause I was like, cause some of the enemies that were like 3-4 hits to take to, to get them down took like 1 hit for me once I leveled up a lot, like all my stats to where I want them. So technically there is a difficulty slider. It's just more of a natural end of that. I will say this, Pagan, before we move on. Pagan, I will say this: if it's more of a physically like accessibility to, I would agree with you on that. So where we want to include people like that, include people, everybody that around like that.
Yeah, with disabilities, I
But
think that
with disabilities
have...
like that, that's what I meant by like physical disabilities.
Yeah.
I would agree with you on in terms of that. But it's always like I guess it's always a
yeah. I absolutely want anyone
here
to physically be able to play a game
exactly
within their limitations. If they need the assistance of like a controller or an
I think
adapter,
they should add something like that.
Absolutely. But there are things
Or
out there like
difficulty level.
the Xbox has the adaptive controller, for people who have physical limitations. So they could still play
Right.
Elden Ring. It's still going to be hard as balls.
Well, certain physical limitations. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree with you. I just think that like again, we're not going to like agree on everything here. We will agree to disagree. I do think that games should have an easier drop down option or like an easier mode.
Fair enough. And that's what I was saying before. I was like, I would agree with you on that aspect of like physical accessibility. And the person's like, I'm good. I just need that software.
Yeah, just
that's going to mod that. Yeah. I would agree 100% with you on that.
Yeah.
As far as like I'm just a noob or like I'm not good with games. Like I'm a casual gamer. I get it that you want to do it, but this is how you go from casual gamer to actually no offense, gamer.
Yeah, no,
or
totally agree.
Not like to a different level of gaming. Like in anything,
I agree with you. I don't think that me as an abled gamer, I don't think I should be dropping down the difficulty level. I think I should be pushing myself to experience it the same way that you guys are experiencing it. However, if I had any sort of disability that wasn't like I wasn't able to tap buttons as quickly as that, then having an easier difficulty helps. Mm-hmm. Even if it's just like, even if you had more accessibility options to be like, a slower mode, so that's not it's not that it's more difficult mode. It's just that it's slower just so that they have time to react, because we react quickly because we're able-bodied. Do you know what I mean? So I'm like, that would be interesting.
I see.
To have that.
I see what you're saying.
Into this
yeah, I'm sorry. This is
we can add this in.
We can edit this in.
We can edit this in. We can use this because this is kind of like what I want. That's kind of what I was trying to say with Pagan before. It was like, but I see what you're saying, because you want to put like, say, okay, the boss is a little slower, but his damage output is the same. It gives you a chance to, you could, so basically like a modification. I can't even understand what you're saying. I definitely understand that in regards to that.
So since we're back on this, there's another point that I was going really close to making.
Go for it, Dan.
And I wanted to talk about genre and the games of difficulty within different genres, because there are numerous games out there that are really hard, but in different genres that I have that same issue with. Like there are like really well known like CRTPGs, like or computer RPGs that are
Mhm.
like I won't play those games because I am not good at them. I'm like, oh, I really
Mhm.
want to play these games. I really want to experience the stories. They have really high ratings, and like, but I start playing it. I'm like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to play. I get frustrated. I give
Mhm.
up.
Yeah.
But it's a genre thing. I could take the
Mhm.
time. I could spend the time with the game. I could invest in it and get good at those games. But because the genre doesn't click with me quite as much, I don't
Yeah.
bother. And I'm like, you know what?
Right.
This happened to me with Pillars of Eternity. Pillars of Eternity is one of the most well-known CRPGs in the world, and it's one of the highest rated ones out there. I bought that game because it was so highly rated. I played it for a few hours and I was like, man, I see what they're doing. I see how cool this is, but I can't. I just can't
Mhm.
get myself around this combat. I can't get myself around these systems. And I think this game's just not for me. And I just put it
Honest,
to bed,
right.
and just moved on.
Right, but I think that that should be your choice as a player.
It is my choice,
You
as it should
shouldn't
be
be
for
off
anyone
put.
Mhm.
else, though.
Right, but what I'm saying is I think that Elden Ring should be available to everybody who wants to play Elden Ring, so that it's not like a I can't play that because it's
Wouldn't
too hard. Like that game has already decided that that's not for me, whereas you as a gamer picked up something in a genre that you didn't
No,
like and you just were like not clicking with it
but
and
I'm
then you
saying it's
chose
the
to put it
same
down.
thing because of there is a difficulty to Pillars of Eternity. And it
Right?
was my inability to
Yeah.
get past that difficulty that initially stopped me. That's the point. I might have not expressed that well enough. The game was hard
Mhm.
for me as a
Yeah,
player. Like I could not. I was losing battle after battle after battle,
I
and
see.
it's because the game is that it's more of a turn-based RPG. It's about the way you manage your players, and it's very manipulative. Like you really have to micromanage all of your people, and I'm like,
Mhm.
Mhm.
I this is
Right.
too much for me, and I don't want to do this. In the same vein that Elden Ring is an action game, and it's about how
Yes.
you are able to adapt to the combat. That's the same sense, but not in an action way. It was a slow-paced strategy, micromanaging kind of game. But I decided this isn't for me. I'm going to back away from this and say, okay, nope. I gave it my best, but it's never gonna unless I spend a lot of time to try and get
Yeah.
good. And then I'm saying it's similar in that same
I mean,
vein.
that's like League of Legends, right? Like you play
Oh,
League of
sure.
Legends on online. There's no
But that's
difficulty
also
mode. Like it's
competitive,
just a
though.
yeah, it's just a multiplayer. It's competitive. There's barely a tutorial, like barely. And like I've definitely picked that up a few times, been like, yeah, no. I try, I think I'm having fun, and then I get slaughtered and I'm like, this is how is there skill to this? And there really is. And I just don't have the patience for it because it's not my
Yeah.
genre, it's not my thing. But it's a
I,
free game. Like I got to play it for
Oh,
free and be
sure.
like, nah.
honestly, I mean, to kind of go off of the genre, uh, I guess what you're saying, Dan, like, I guess, how would I put it this way? Um, I guess if you're really going to enjoy a game like Elden Ring, it's like if the lore is interesting enough
Sure.
to want to keep playing.
Mm-hmm.
To
You still have
like,
to enjoy the genre.
well, sure, the genre, but I mean, I played
Genre.
shooters that I never genre. I mean, here's the thing: I played shooters that I didn't like.
But you
There's
like
some
shooters,
shooters
though.
that I like shooters, but there's some shooters that I never liked.
Right, but that's still
So
within
it
your
just depending
genre.
on it can
Mm,
well sure, but it can also depend on the lore and the storyline.
Oh, sure, but
yeah.
that's just a shooter that
But
you don't enjoy. I'm talking about playing a game outside of your genre that you
mhm.
enjoy.
But I don't think
Oh, you're
anybody
saying like
but I don't think
right?
anybody who plays Animal Crossing, for example, or those kind of games, right? Tunic, Animal Crossing, these kind of like top down
Tunic?
almost like. Well, okay,
Oh
well,
my god.
Tunic is actually hard.
Tunic is
Tunic is hard.
Elden Ring, but in Zelda
I know it
disguise.
is fucking hard.
Zelda
I
Breath of the
love
Wild
Tunic
form.
because it's basically
It's
Elden
very
Ring.
cute. Okay, so all right, let me rephrase. So like, if you're playing games like Animal Crossing, for example, where it's not actually there's no combat involved, you're just going around building like the fucking Sims, you know what I mean? There's
Hmm.
no difficulty level because it's just chill vibes. I don't think someone who plays that genre is going to pick up Elden Ring because even in the advertisements, I don't think they're going to be like, "Wow, that game looks just for me." Like Come
Right.
on. Like, they're not going to pick
Elden
that up.
Ring.
They might pick up
Elden
Tunic.
Ring kind of.
They might pick up Tunic because
Well,
they're like,
Elden-
oh, they look so cute. Why is it so hard?
Yeah,
I
could
feel like
see
Elden
that.
Ring has a genre of its own, though. I feel like Elden Ring has a genre
It's
of
an
its
open
own.
world
The
Soulsborne.
It's an
Soulsborne
open
is
world,
a genre.
but
Yeah, like the Soulsborne is a genre of its own.
It really is. They created their own type of genre.
Totally.
No, they
in a
absolutely
sense.
did. Like
but
Miyazaki
I feel
did
like
that with Demon Souls originally.
he did.
Yeah.
But I feel like lore is also the kind of the heavy. It's kind of ingrained into their series.
Yeah.
Is the lore, and if I feel like with some people, if the lore is not, say good enough for them too, it could also severely impact how they want to play the game.
I could say this too within the discourse around Elden Ring. There's a lot of people who buy Elden Ring and they're like, "There's no cutscenes, there's no
George
story,
R. R.
there's no talking, there's no reason for me to play this game. Why am I playing this game?"
Right.
And that's like
Right.
Pagan, like you. I know you prefer a game with good story, and Elden Ring
Yeah.
doesn't really have much of one. So some people it might not even be the difficulty. It might just be the lack of narrative. That they
Yeah.
like, I don't want to play this. There's no story. There's no
Mhm.
cutscenes. I'm going to go back to playing Horizon with hundreds of hours of talking.
Yes.
Where
And
there's
that can
no
also
talking.
be a factor. That can
Yeah.
be a factor of that too. And that's fair. That's actually a fair assessment to be like, well, it's not catching my attention.
What I do
And
think
people
though, like,
would just say they don't like Elden Ring.
and there's
That's another-
plenty
that's
of
a fair-
games, like gamers that'll do that for any game. They'll pick up a game,
Yeah.
just start playing it, but like, yeah, this is not for me.
Yeah.
But the people who are into action RPGs or whatever, right? Like say Skyrim or whatever it is. I don't know. I haven't really played much of that game either, but I'm just thinking like people who are into it, who like the lore, who like the Soulsborne style
Right.
of gaming
If they
or
like
whatever.
Soulsborne, they're
But
going
what
to like
if-
Elden Ring.
Yeah, exactly. But just like if they
Mhm.
don't experience the same difficulty level as everybody else, so like assuming everybody plays the same way and is experiencing the same difficulty level, then this is the output of the game. Like this is the Miyazaki vision. That's just assuming everybody's playing it the same way, and
Mhm.
it just doesn't include people who don't experience that difficulty the same way. And I'm not talking about noob gamers. I'm just talking about like potentially disabled gamers or gamers who have even just a mental disability, or like it doesn't have to be a physical disability. It can also be anything else that would
Mhm.
encompass in that word, that they just can't play through it because they can't succeed past these bosses. That's pretty
And can I
defeatist of
s-
them. Like they're just like, oh, like I can't. I
Well, can I
literally
s-
want to, but I can't.
Right. Oh, can I say this then?
Yeah.
I feel like with Miyazaki,
Miyazaki.
I am butchering that name. It feels it's more of kind of like it's a target audience. He's going for
Absolutely.
a certain targeted audience, and that's fair to do too. It's like kind of like this is what like you said, it's what I envision. This is
Sure.
this is what I want for at least a game for me. But yeah, it's kind of a slippery slope between with like physically disabled
Mhm.
or people who are casual gamers.
Right.
But there is kind of a fine line between the two. And that's why I said before, like I would agree for there being an accessibility for the physically disabled.
Yeah,
because they
especially
can be
mods
like,
and
I can
things
play
like
this
that as well.
game.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like I would agree to that. I would definitely say, yeah, that's got to be a little bit more inclusive for that stuff too. But
Hey,
I feel
if
like
there's a guy who can
there's-
become the world's best sniper in Call of Duty, who can't
exactly.
use any of his, limbs, like
Mhm.
people
I
are going
really
to
need
do
to
it.
find out what
There-
his name
there
is.
are
Like he is such
amazing-
a
I know, I need to
great
too.
You
streamer.
figure that out.
He's such a great
I'll
streamer.
vamp,
Hold on.
I'll vamp for you a bit because that guy is amazing. Like the
He's
things he
amazing.
can do with just his mouth alone, like
Puts
there
me
are
to shame.
people out there who overcome their disabilities in such amazing ways. And I guarantee you,
It's
it's going to
crazy.
happen. We're going to see somebody beat Elden Ring like a fucking oh, it's going to be a train wreck. They're going to play as the wretch. They're not going to level up any of their stats. They're going to beat the whole game in like an hour, all using like their nose. And it's going to be like,
Mhm.
how?
Should I
can't
tell you
beat it."
this?
He is.
Dude, somebody speedrun that game for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Elden Ring,
Yeah.
30 minutes.
What?
I saw
It's
that.
crazy.
Oh
Yeah.
my god. Rocky Nohans is his name. His
Okay.
name is Rocky
Rocky
Nohans.
Stoutenberg,
Incredible.
33
Incredible.
from Detroit, Michigan.
Hey!
He's got
Look
and
at
he's
that.
got 70.5 thousand on Twitch. Followers on Twitch, and I have to say he's one of the best gamers I've ever seen play
Top tier.
Warzone. Like fuck, he's so good. But this is what I'm saying. Like, I mean, I don't know how he experiences games. I don't know how anybody really with disability
Mm.
like experiences those games. But I'm just thinking like
Mhm.
surely there could be moderations for that, even if that includes an
Right.
easier difficulty mode. I don't think that noobs or casual gamers should play it on an easier mode. I'm just saying that like that should be up to the player. If they don't experience the difficulty the same way, I think a pop-up
Mhm.
box to just be like, hey, you can drop the difficulty. However, this isn't really like the challenge we wanted to set out for you. Like you
That's
could
what
do
Star Wars
that.
does. It's literally
Yeah,
what Star Wars does.
you could do it and just be like, look, this just
Yeah.
isn't the experience that we wanted for you as a gamer, but totally up to you. If you'd like to continue, you can do that. Again, I don't think like, I think there's arguments against that as well. They're going to be like, oh yeah, you're going to be like Wolfenstein and you're just going to make fun of the people dropping down. And even if they're disabled gamers, like they need to have the same, like, I just think that it shouldn't hinder anybody else's experience, regardless of whether or not like this is the intention for Miyazaki and his team to put out there a
Mhm.
really struggling or difficult game, because it would still be really difficult for those gamers to
Right.
continue playing that game. So I think that they would still experience struggle. It just won't be the same struggle that you would experience, because that struggle for them is like impossibility.
There's a mantra that keeps coming to me every time I play Elden Ring. It's how much do you want it? How much do you want to beat this guy? How much do you want that? Want those runes? How much do you want those?
I should really play these
That
games
new
because I have
armor.
no fucking context of
I
how
mean, you played a
difficult
little
this
bit of
is.
Bloodborne, so you have a little
You did
context.
play a little, yeah, right?
I've played a little bit of Bloodborne,
It's
yeah.
in that vein.
Yeah.
It's in that vein, but it's not like Souls, where
The one thing that
the
Elden Ring
mechanics
does
are
very differently from all the others is it gives you the freedom to wander and deal
yes.
with things that are much easier, and you're not forced, like I was trying to explain before, that you're not forced to
Mhm.
deal with any of the big bosses. And
Tree Sentinel.
yeah, you can go around the tree sentinel and you can literally walk around and like hunt deer, and you can kill some early soldiers or goblins. The goblins are some of the easiest enemies in the game, and you can just
Yeah.
Go cave diving.
do that. You can just do that for however long it takes you to get stronger enough to take on the next enemy. Like if you run
Yeah.
into an enemy that kills you really easy, okay, too soon for that guy. I'm going to back up. I'm going to wander around. I'm going to explore a little bit. Just be
I
prepared
don't
to like walk into a cave and something just like bam and you're dead. You're like, oh,
Yeah,
okay.
I mean, like,
There
I
are
think that
caves,
should be the
too.
same experience though, if it's on an easier difficulty for the people who don't experience difficulty the same
I just
way.
don't know
I
how
think
you
it's
do that,
there's a better way
honestly.
to phrase this. I don't know how to
Especially
phrase it.
with bosses. Especially with bosses having different difficulty tiers, I guess I want to say.
Sure.
Because there are caves that are mini bosses that are easy to beat.
Yeah.
And that's to also help you go to, like, say, the main boss.
Mm.
It'll help increase your character's stats
Oh,
to
and
be stronger.
Elden Ring has
you know.
the summons too. They've never done summons
Summons, yeah.
before. So now in this one, when you're in single player specifically, you can summon in these spirits
Yeah.
to help you.
Mhm.
I use them every single time I run into a boss fight.
Yeah.
I summon my ghost friends, and my ghost friends help me out
Okay.
every time.
They give you the tools. It's just how are you going to utilize that tool
Mhm.
Yeah.
to help yourself defeat basically something that's really, really difficult.
Mhm.
If anything, it's kind of in trying to get you to think outside that box.
Yeah.
Which, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I think like
We have
again,
talked
I
a
think it
lot
will
on
be.
this.
We have, and it will always be a case of like we'll agree to disagree, because I just
Exactly.
think that all of what you said is still true for someone
Oh,
at a lower
absolutely.
difficulty that experiences
Mhm.
it. Even if they drop down a difficulty, they're still experiencing hardcore fighting elements. They're still struggling the same way you guys are doing, but because that's how they experience the difficulty level. If you know what I mean.
If I could
Right.
say one
It's
last
hard
thing,
to. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
But yeah,
It's hard to vocalize. I'm sure that there's
it
loads of
is.
comments on this, so feel
I
free to
want to
leave that in the comments on
I
this
want to
video.
say one thing before we close this out, and that's the only reason we're even having this conversation now is because of the popularity of Elden Ring. These
Yeah.
games have
Right.
existed for over 10 years. It started with Demon Souls.
Mhm.
Demon Souls
Mhm.
had it, then Dark Souls, Dark Souls
We
2,
played it.
Dark Souls
You and
3.
I.
You know, all of these
Yeah.
games have had this exact same style of gameplay, but because of the high level of marketability that Elden Ring had, because of
Yeah.
George R.R. Martin's name being attached to
Yeah.
it,
Sure.
and because it got 10 out of 10s, there's a lot of people being drawn to this game who had no idea about these games beforehand. So now there's people who had no knowledge walking in blind, and they're being blindsided by the difficulty.
And that's fair. Yeah, that's fair to say too, because of the name attachment to it. I feel like with the name attachment with George R. R. Martin, it's definitely drawing new people, like new what's the word I'm talking? What's the word I'm thinking of? It's drawing in more publicity for other audiences that have never heard of the other games that are associated with Elden Ring. Like this Dark Souls game. Like, let me be honest with you. I have not beaten a single game of that Miyazaki.
Miyazaki
Let
game?
me clarify that. I've beaten Dark Souls 3 and
Oh.
nothing else because it was, I enjoyed the game and it was hard. But I stopped playing it.
Or did you play with friends?
I tried soloing. I did. It was a bit of both.
Okay.
Honestly, but I just didn't end up beating it, and I'm kind of wanting to beat it. I want to go to Demon Souls and beat it.
I just started playing Dark
But
Souls
I
3
enjoyed
myself
the
for the first
shit
time.
out of that game,
it's-
but I
it's
never
a
beat it.
blast.
And I think, not to kind of give ammo for Pagan, but it was difficult. But at the same token, though, I enjoyed the hell out of it. I not had a negative thing to say about any of those things,
Sure.
even though it was hard. That was not even that wasn't even considered to me as a negative aspect of it.
Yeah,
it was more the case of like I enjoyed the shit out of this thing.
Yeah, like I still
why am I not playing it again?
Like I still play The Witcher 3, and it's difficult for me.
Right.
Like it's really hard for me in some areas, and I'm like, God damn! Like I've definitely tried this at least 40 times now, and I'm like, for fuck's sake, I just can't get past it. And it's the same with like one of my friends took 2 years or something. That's a complete Bloodborne. They just kept going back to it. Like we take breaks or whatever.
It took me
and just be like,
7
I can't.
years. I only just beat it.
Yeah,
it took me 7 years.
I want to go back to Demon Souls.
Like I get you. I totally
to
understand what you're saying.
Did you get Demon Souls on PS5, Andrew?
I'm going to.
Oh, man, there we go. Let's go. Let's go.
Yeah, no, I totally I agree with you. I'm not saying that you can't still enjoy a game without completing it. I just think that it should be accessible for everybody to complete it.
I understand that.
So that you can still persist. You can still persist over 10, 15 years and complete it. Like, I just don't think you should be like, well, you're never going to complete this game, but enjoy it anyway. Like, I just think that there's like a difference. Like, I totally understand what you're saying.
It's a fair point.
Yeah. I just think that like
it should go back and play an original Nintendo game and be like, "Hey, good luck beating those."
Yeah, honestly, they are so hard. No, I agree. Yeah. There's probably more difficult games out there. Like there probably is. They're just not as popular and in the hype right now.
Well, there's also games that are more difficult that aren't balanced, like a FromSoft game, because some games are just hard just to be hard, but FromSoft games are very specifically structured and built around their difficulty so that you can get good at it and that you can overcome it.
So it's like a meticulously. It's kind of like if you think about it, it's kind of very detailed oriented. Like they know it's gonna be hard.
Tunic does the same thing.
Yeah.
Well, with like I said before, with like the mini bosses, like in the caves, like where you can go, like they're easier to go against because they made it that way.
Yes.
Like, you can definitely. I feel like with difficulty, that's what I was saying before. It's like more of like there is a natural slider of difficulty. It's not supposed. It's kind of like a.
Well, I'm also like I'm thinking about the games who have difficulty sliders and they have a harder mode, but when you crank up that harder difficulty, really all it does is make you as a player weaker and make the enemies stronger, and there is no you can't do anything about it. You are just really vulnerable and they're really strong, and that's it. Like playing Uncharted on the hardest difficulty is you have to be damn near perfect to make sure you're hitting guys exactly and not get shot. You get shot once, you're dead.
Yeah.
But the FromSoft games don't do that though.
No,
and that's what I'm saying. The fact that you've completed it on hard mode or whatever, like gruesome or something like that in God mode, whatever it's called. The fact that you're completing it on that, like you're probably going to get trophies, you're probably going to get rewards or whatever, and it's going to be a harder but probably more challenging and rewarding experience for you. But I as like a story mode gamer, could play it on easy and still have a really great experience because I'm experiencing the game. Now, again, it's different because it is narrative driven. I totally understand that. Like I'm still getting through the story and it's only a 15, 20 hour game or whatever it is. So I understand you in a way. It definitely depends on the type of game. With RPG, it's different. Open world RPG specifically.
Well, action.
But I don't think that, action RPG. But I just think that it's just like it just should be accessible to everybody. I just think that you should be able to complete this on a lower difficulty. I don't think it should have the bigger point 4 difficulty options. Just like normal.
No, I get that, and I wasn't even trying to argue against that now because like we're kind of beating a dead horse at this point.
Yeah, we are beating
We're
this
going
dead
in
horse.
circles.
I
I'm
was
sorry,
trying to
yeah.
make the point of when I'm playing a FromSoft game and I'm
Yeah.
against a tough enemy or a boss, and I'm like, it takes me a lot of time and energy to
Yeah.
get past that element. And afterwards, I'm like, oh, yeah, I did it. Woo! You know, like finally. But then when I'm playing another game, and I don't want to say
Yeah.
names, any game that has a difficulty slider and you're playing it on hard, and it's the kind of thing where you're like, I stuck my head out, bang, I'm dead.
Yes.
That is just pure frustrating rage. And there's no getting good at that. I don't enjoy playing those games on those harder difficulties. Like I enjoy playing a FromSoft game because they're just challenging. And when you overcome it, it feels really good.
It's rewarding.
When
Yeah.
I beat a regular game on a hard difficulty, it's just you're white knuckling it the whole time. You're just like, fuck. And then you finally, if you do beat it, you're just like, I'm never playing this game again.
Yeah, you're just like, finally, about time, rather than
I don't
like
know why-
oh yes, yeah, I see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
I
a
don't know
different-
why, Dan,
I get you.
but you just captured me with like you just captured my essence of playing not only Elden Ring but any game out there that
My light just fell over. Oh my god. I'm sorry. It was Dan's rage.
My rage carried its way over to
I
Ireland.
could see it go as well. I was like, this is gonna go. So I reached for it, and just as I did,
your light fainted due to the excessive rage.
Damn, sorry about that.
But I mean, I will say this. I'm like, Pagan, it's a fair point what you're saying. Because again, people like do see like say, oh, that's an interesting lore. It's an interesting lore. It's an interesting like story. And I do understand what you're saying. But it's also going to also try to affect kind of the direction or at least the freedom of that, you know, saying like what he's trying to at least tell. The Miyazaki is trying to at least say.
The game designers, yeah.
It kind of, right. And also too, I feel like it would be kind of difficult to kind of like, if you put in difficulty slider, it would kind of, you would have to change up, you would have to kind of go back into the coding and change up a lot of stuff too. Where
For sure. I don't think this is any way an easy option. I don't think they're going to patch it overnight and be like, hey, we added a fucking non-difficult mode. Like it's never going to happen with this game. And I don't think it's
Brandy just messaged me like, why are you screaming? Are you okay?
Nope, Brandy, he's not okay. He's in pain.
He's not. He's in rage mode.
I totally understand. Like, I don't think it's an easy fix at all. No pun intended there. But I just think that, like, I think games should be for everyone. I think they should have a difficulty level because I don't think it should matter how somebody experiences a game. And this is a larger discourse, and I'm sure everybody in the chat will go nuts on this topic. But there's a larger discourse about easy modes in general. If you play on easy mode, then can you review a video game? All this kind of stuff as well. Like, there's a massive, like, greater or bigger picture on this kind of discourse. And ultimately, we will all have to disagree or agree to disagree because I believe that it should have an easy R option for accessibility issues. For just maybe, like, I don't think noob gamers or casual gamers should drop down the difficulty. However, that's on them. And that's your choice. And I ain't got nothing to do with you. If you want to drop it down to that difficulty, that's fine. I don't care if that person passes that boss in 30 tries and I have to try 80 times because I know my struggle. I feel the reward myself. I feel rewarded by getting through that boss.
Pagan,
if they feel slightly less rewarded or if they're okay,
if you want to get introduced to Soulsborne's, play Star Wars, put it on story mode. That'll get you acclimated.
Play Star Wars and put it on story mode?
Fallen
Order on story mode.
Okay.
It is a Soulsborne.
Okay.
In every ounce of its core, but you can put it on story mode and you can actually play it on it. That game has been built and structured around the ability to play it on an easier difficulty.
And does it make the game any less the vision of the director?
I wouldn't know because I didn't play it on story mode. I played it on hard because that's how I play those games.
I never played it, so I can't really comment on that.
But I feel like if we were having a discussion, if we were having a discussion about this game that I've already played, right? Say I played it on story mode. Like, I don't think that...
I'd be curious to have that discussion. That's another reason for you to play it. You play it on story mode and tell me about your experience. I want to know.
Okay, fine. I will. This has been great, guys.
Like,
this has been... All right, bet. No, this has been
bet.
great. Thank you so much, Andrew, for coming on and joining our discourse today. It is a contentious topic, I guess, and there'll be a lot of different opinions online, and I'm sure there'll be like some dislikes on this video. But but
Hey,
if you
we're here
do
for the
like this
discourse.
content, please make sure that we know about it. Leave a review in the comments on audio channels on the Couch Soup website. Feel free to leave that in the comments.
Absolutely.
Create a profile. It is completely free to create a profile, and then pop in a
Mhm.
comment and let us know how you're feeling about this. Thank you again, Andrew. Thank you, Dan.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
you.
And hopefully next time we did intend to have Michelle on this episode to talk about Harry Potter and Hogwarts Legacy, specifically the new trailer that came out. But unfortunately we had some technical issues, and we will try and have them back on the next show. So Andrew and Michelle will both be back on soon to discuss Hogwarts Legacy, which I could go into full detail very
Amazing.
passionately about.
Yeah.
I'm very excited about it. So yeah,
Such
I
an amazing game.
look forward to having that chat with you guys soon. All right.
Game over.
All right.
That's game over, folks. Take care. Bye.
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 Bye.